Hi. So it's Nick, sitting at the beach. This is a place that I come often to ground and to cleanse and to calm and soothe my nervous system. There's inevitably going to be, as I think you may or may not be able to hear them because of my headphones, an airplane going by or people that may go by in the background. But before that happens, let me just give you a quick shot of where I am. So this is the current beauty that is surrounding me. And I wanted to pop in here today just to do a little, what my friend Carl calls stories by the sea. I started doing these for kind of a select group of folks based on business stuff a while ago, just while I was at the ocean taking a break, and he nicknamed them Stories by the Sea. So shout out to Carl for that. But I just wanted to talk about something that has been weighing heavily on my head and in my heart in the last little while. And that is this sense of divisiveness that is happening right now. And of course, there's always this in our world. This is part of humanity. But right now, it's feeling super polarizing. And I wanted to just talk about this from the perspective of myself as somebody who has been doing yoga for a long time. One of the gifts that my yoga practice has given me is an ability to observe what is happening in my mind and heart in a more conscious and deliberate way. Of course, not perfectly. But before my yoga and my meditation practice, I was reacting a lot more than I was responding to situations based on, my own shit, my own stuff from upbringing, whatever, but also just, the way we are as society. We are not a society unfortunately, of listeners. Speaking of listening, I don't know if you can hear that airplane. I'm going to keep talking anyways because I do project pretty well, so hopefully that won't muffle me out. Because if I keep stopping this every time there's a plane or someone walking by, it's just never going to happen, and done is better than perfect. So, being able to observe my mind and my heart. And I want to mention, too, that in many cultures, like in traditional Chinese medicine, for example, the head and the heart are not separate. These are not like, two separate things like we think of them in the West as. Like we think of head is brain and thoughts. Heart is emotion and, spiritual stuff. It's not that way. These two are actually one spirit in Chinese medicine. And that spirit is called Shen. And actually, that's a far more holistic way of living, in my opinion, because most of the time, even when we think we're leading all from our head, we're not actually. We're leading from our emotions. So, I've noticed a lot of othering happening right now. And if you don't know what that means, it's this sense of us and them, right and wrong, black and white. And I'm not speaking of skin color when I say black and white. I'm talking about the actual colors, black and white, as polar opposites of each other. And I'm going to say this, but not in the way that I'm trying to be insulting, but just in a way of in a lack of experience, right? So I'm going to use the word immature, but not as a diss, but just in a sense that, like, when you haven't practiced something, you're immature in the practice. You're new. You're unaware. Ignorance is another word that could come up. So when we think that others are separate and there is right and wrong and black and white and us and them, it causes us to be really reactionary and to push people away. And it also closes the door to conversation and learning and growing. as people. And I'm sure we've all had, if you're an adult, some experience in your life where, sorry, adjusting myself on my beach log here, some experience in your life where you were positive about something. You knew it was right. And then years later, changed your mind because you got new information, you grew as a person, and you either changed your mind completely on that thing or you realized that maybe things weren't quite so cut and dry. They weren't quite so black and white. This is what I mean when I say mature. As I've matured as a person and as a yogi, I don't really like using that word, but I don't really know another word to use right now for it. Practitioner of yoga, how about that? And by that I don't just mean my sun salutations. I mean yoga in the bigger picture, not just the asana. But as I've grown in those directions and developed a spiritual practice and a meditation practice, I have learned that there is very little black and white. And there is oceans and oceans and oceans of gray. And that the answer to a situation when somebody is asking you yes or no is often, it depends. This is what I have learned as I matured. The answer is often, it depends. And of course the human mind isn't like that because we like clear-cut answers. Or at least the part of the human mind that is attached to our sort of fear response, right? It's sort of what they sometimes call the lizard brain, which is not a great reference, but it's more primal part of our mind that, deals in, is this safe or unsafe, right? That's the part of our mind that makes things black and white. But my hope is that as yoga practitioners, we can pull ourselves into other parts of our mind, into the parts of our mind that can see that things are far more nuanced and that can sit with discomfort. One of the things that my meditation practice has taught me over the years is before, and I'm not perfect at this by any means, but before I emotionally react to something that somebody else has said or done, to pull back and to sit with it and to breathe and to ask myself questions, not about them, but about my response. So if I feel like having an emotional response and lashing out at people, it's my job to notice that, to pull back, and to sit with it and to ask myself questions. Do I have all the information? Am I just reacting emotionally? Have I asked the person questions about their perspective, their viewpoint? Is it possible they have information I don't have, or life experience that's different than mine, that's informing their decisions and their viewpoints and their thoughts and their opinions? These are the questions to ask. And this is not easy, but this is the work. One of my very first yoga teachers, I think this was almost 17 years ago now when I was in teacher training and we were starting, actually talked to this. She said that there will be things that you will learn in this training that will, I don't want to use the word trigger because that actually means PTSD, but it's too often used. So I'm going to say push your buttons. There's going to be things that will push your buttons. Things that will come up that you will instantly want to go no to, no, and push away. When that happens, before you say no, sit with it. Is this feeling of no because what you have said is just, I've sat with it and it's just all out wrong, it goes totally against my values, and you've bothered to inquire if that's the case? Have I investigated this? Have I asked the questions? Have I sat with it and I realize, no, this does not ring true for me. This does not feel resonant. Then it's a no. But you'll notice that when that happens, then it's a no, not a no. This is often the difference. Sometimes when these buttons are pushed, I'm paraphrasing her, sometimes when these buttons are pushed, it shows us actually, when we have that no response, it shows us more about ourselves. Is there work that needs to be done there? Why am I feeling so pushed by this particular thing? And is there something that I could do there? Is there more work? Is there more unearthing? Is there more to discover there about why this particular thing, person, situation, opinion, whatever it is pushing my buttons? So sometimes we reject information because we have been thoughtful about it, we've taken the time to investigate it, we've used our critical thinking skills, and we've just been like, you know what, that doesn't feel true for me. That's really different than just a harsh no as soon as you hear something. This is the difference to me between responding and reacting. This is the difference between saying, in order for me to feel right about my decisions, my choices, my thoughts, my opinions, my whatever it is, I need to make you wrong. It is a very dangerous place to be in. I'll say that again, because it happens a lot. If, in order for you to feel right about your decisions, your choices, you need to make someone else feel wrong, then I would argue you don't actually feel 100% resolve in your choice. That no response and that making somebody else wrong is coming from fear. Fear is often disguised as judgment. I don't have to admit I'm afraid of things that you do or say if I'm too busy judging you for them. So when we are presented with information, thoughts, opinions that push our buttons, that create an emotional response, we need to take a step back and just look at that. Is this actually true? Is my response in proportion to what they said? Have I bothered to ask them questions about their experience and their opinion? For us to assume that someone has an opinion and they haven't based it on any other research or thought is very arrogant. So whenever I'm presented with an opinion that feels a bit like an affront to me, I'm going to immediately start to ask questions from that person. Just for clarity, are you saying, why is it that you feel that way? I'm curious about your experience. This keeps you from making a snap decision and instantly judging or othering or pushing someone away when you take the time to ask questions. This is where conversation can happen. If you don't do that, and you just go on your initial response, which we all do at times, let's face it, we're human. The key is to apologize and own it when you've done it. But when we don't do that, we are risking this us and them mentality. We are risking this you versus me, black versus white, othering. This is not only a very dangerous position for us to be as humans with our fellow humans, but it's also spiritually immature. And I'm not saying that as a diss. By immature, I mean inexperienced. Because any of us that have been adults for very long can probably think back to some situation in our life where we were positive about something, 100% positive about our opinion, and no one could talk us out of it. We were right. Only later to realize actually we weren't. Or we didn't have all the facts. Or maybe we weren't actually quite as sure as we thought we were back then. And if this hasn't happened to you yet in your adult life, then you're not growing. So if you can look back at anything in your life and realize, ooh, I've been wrong before. I've made very strong statements about things. I've had strong opinions, especially in my youth. I had plenty of them. that actually in hindsight, I'm not sure I stand behind anymore, then use that as learning when you feel now like reacting instead of responding. In Ram Dass's book, Be Here Now, one of the most useful parts of that book for me, because we're all prone to judgment. And remember, judgment is fear. If I'm judging you, it's because I'm afraid of something you're saying or doing. Otherwise, I would have no need to judge you. So when we're not feeling our fear, and it's turning into judgment and self-righteousness, which is what will happen, then we are othering people. We are pushing them away and saying, you were wrong, I am right. And if you are a practicing yoga practitioner, and by that I don't just mean the physical part, I mean if you're actually using some of these aha moments that you have on your mat in your real life, if you're actually using some of the spiritual teachings of yoga, then you shouldn't be stuck in this divisiveness. So the simple phrase that I will leave you with, that is not mine, it is from Ram Dass, that I find helpful, is not two. So not two, meaning we are one. So whenever I find myself judging somebody, as I notice it happening, I stop and I say to myself in my mind, not to. It's just a really simple way to break that pattern. Because in order to create new thought patterns, we have to break the thought patterns we already have. And if we've been living unconsciously in this us, them, black, white, right, wrong, then we got some thought patterns we can break up. Not two. So that's what I'll leave you with. Next time you feel like judging, othering, making somebody right or wrong, making somebody wrong so you can feel right in your choices, pause, sit with that. Ask them questions if you feel resourced enough to about their viewpoint. If you don't, at least just sit with your own emotions and decide, where are these coming from? Is this fear, therefore turning into judgment? Not two. All right, y'all, that's all I have. One more shot of the sea. It's actually an ocean, but stories by the sea sound so much better than stories by the ocean. I hope you are well. Social media in this time can be incredibly challenging and draining and exhausting, so please take care of yourself. If you notice that you keep checking your feed and feeling like shit, turn it off. Go for a walk. Connect with someone you care about. Okay, y'all. Much love to you. Take care of yourself so that you can be kind to those you love, to your community, to the world at large.